All righty, we're in business. All right, here we go. As I mentioned, Katie is out, and so you guys have me tonight. Um, and we're kicking off where we left off, which is on prototyping, and kind of looking to see some challenges some folks had in terms of uploading their prototyping assignments. So if you had some issues uploading your prototyping assignments, please email them directly to RJ and myself, or you can use the info@10and5.org email address, which comes to all of us. And so if you're having issues putting them into the platform, which we'll take a look at, that's kind of the immediate. I know Diana, you talked about it. Reynard, did you get through yours? You know, yeah.
Sorry, sorry, I couldn't press thing. For the most part, I did. I made a little video, but I mean, it's kind of corny, kind of simple.
Hey, I
Um,
love corny. You know me, I'm all for the corny. Did you
yeah,
send it to us?
I sent the. No, let me send it now.
Okay.
I sent it right
Um,
now.
yeah, Diana mentioned having some issues uploading it, so you could just email it to either RJ's email or the info at 10 and 5 if you can, or Katie's, well, because Katie's out, so we can review it. Info at 10 and
Okay.
5 sends it to all of us, or you can send it to RJ and myself and Katie, whichever. Just send it, we'll get it. Hey, Elizabeth, how did you do with your prototyping?
So not done. Actually started over, but
What happens?
that was because I wanted to I wanted to change something. So it's not done just yet, but my goal is to have it finished by the end of today. I thought I would have more time to get it done before class this evening. But that was not the case.
It's all good. We understand life is happening while you're trying to be great.
Oh, it's definitely happening. And I'm like, wait, slow down. I need you to slow down. It's like I thought I was gonna take this week off. My son's on spring break. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna be a relaxed week. It's not gonna be a lot. And I think that other like my clients took off too, and they were like, this is a great time. And
Catch up
so my
on this.
calendar just kept doing this, and I'm like, so I literally just jumped from one call to this call. I'm like, I got to go. We are done for the day. I gotta go and jump over. So I apologize for being a few minutes late. But that's why.
No, we are happy to have you here, and we understand, which is why we designed the program that we did, right? Because we get it, like we know it's coming, and we know how these processes affect you. But the goal is to give you the tools so that you can continue innovating in your business while living your life, right? Like life don't stop, right? So as you try to build your businesses, so that is very much something that we understand. So no worries. Um, I haven't had a chance to review interviews, any of your prototypes, but I do want to make a couple pointers as you guys kind of, um, finish them up or send them to us. In the past, one of the things we always have to remind our entrepreneurs is to think about the user, and how the user is going to interact with your product or service in a very detailed way. Like when you say push a button, where's the button? How do they find a button? How do they get to the button? Like, I want you to think about all the websites or technology or services that you've used that you found very frustrating to use. Like, what are the ones where you'd be like, why is this like this? Like, I remember trying to navigate a platform, and like they have, like, one of my biggest pet peeves, especially with mobile apps, they have this big old pop-up and they hide the X so you can't get past it and like I don't have time to play Blue's Clues Investigator. I'm just gonna close out your website and go to something else. Like it is like the most frustrating thing that I have to go on this hunt of how to get rid of your pop-up, right? And so I want you guys to think about that, right? As you're going through your prototype, how do you make it the most intuitive way for your users to navigate, get the task done, if it's to purchase a service or a product, if it's to make an appointment, if it's to get information, the most intuitive way for them to navigate that, right? And what are the gaps when you think about other competitors? And I always tell people, when you're building something like a new business or service onto your existing business, think about how is people are addressing it, right? Think about your competitors. What are the gaps in terms of the services out there? How can what you create address that gap? And I spend a lot of time like in stealth mode, just kind of creeping on other people's platforms, right? Like, how they doing it? Oh, what, look at the reviews. What are people complaining about, right? All these things are the things you want to pay attention to. So you know what's are must-haves in your features and what are the problems you must address, right? I want you to kind of think about all of that as you go through your prototype. And I really like what Elizabeth says, that she had to start over. That's why we kind of gave you all these tools, because as you start thinking and you get through, be like, no, that ain't what I want to do. Okay, wait, that's one part, but what about this part? Like, you might have, like, when I'm working on a new innovation, I'll have 3 or 4 different prototypes, right? Because it's like, okay, this is the user flow getting signed in, creating their profile and uploading the documents, right? But then this is them completing this other task. So I need a prototype of understanding this process. Okay, but then I need another one to understand how they, actually complete this whole process, right? And so it's an iterative process. Your business is not stagnant, right? And so as your business evolves, get the ideas out of your head, right? And the paper prototypes we did is just an extension of what we were doing, right? So everything starts with those personas, those storyboards, those scenarios, right? The paper prototype is more of that functional piece of that we talked about. And so it's really important that you really kind of think about navigating and test. So for all you guys who sent the video, did you just video your platform or did you have someone actually test it?
Well, I was my own tester.
Okay, I want you to find one other person. Get that lovely young daughter of yours that is super smart and will give you all the feedback you don't want.
Mm, she mad at me right now. But all right, she's a 16-year-old.
Okay, that's a whole nother conversation. 16 is a whole nother territory. We're gonna leave that alone. But seriously, you guys need to test with your target audience. Renard, if you could find an athlete, a former athlete, a wannabe athlete, anybody in that space, a coach, anybody in that sector.
I got my son in there, so he'll do it.
Yes. And honestly, he's at an age where he can really give you some real feedback, right? And so I think that's really important at that level, right? Because what I love about kids is they think about things differently than we do. And they're like, I mean, this is cool, but why didn't you do this? And it's like, oh crap, why didn't I do that? Right. And so like that is really helpful. So if it's a kid, if it's a parent, if it's a friend, whoever, test often. And with each iteration, test some more, right? This is all about that learning process. So we didn't stop with those initial interviews. You're constant with every step you take in your business, you're testing it out on that population to see if this makes sense, right? Until it all adds up, you're not done, right? And so you're always going through these processes of testing and evolutions. Any questions on our prototypes, or I've seen some come through email. So Diane, were you able, I mean, not Diane, sorry, Linda, were you able to send yours?
I sent it to Katie. I wasn't sure about the info line, but I'll try to do that next time.
Okay. Well, can you, because like I said, since Katie's out and so we can quickly review it, can you also send it to RJ as well? Her email's in the chat.
Yes. We transfer would be the best one, I guess.
Yeah.
It's kind of a larger file, I guess. I had trouble sending it. It was real slow.
Okay, no worries. Diana, you had a question?
Oh, sorry. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I will be honest, I looked back on my assignments and I'm missing the affinity maps. So I'm way behind on that. But I think I'm all caught up now. Is there a way, like, this baby, is there a way for me to upload that assignment? I think that day I was working. So because I'm really good about turning my assignments in, even if it's like on the same day of class, but I believe with a client, so that's why I'm a little behind. And for some reason, I don't even understand affinity map. I tried to do it myself and I felt like I was missing action that day. So
When you looked at the video, it didn't help you figure out how to do it?
I'm gonna go back and look at it. It's just I didn't want to like not continue on. So I guess I'll do it.
Yeah.
And
Go
I'll
ahead.
send you the link to it so you'll know which video that is.
Perfect. Thank you so much, RJ.
You're welcome.
Yeah. No, that if you get stuck, reach out and let us know. It's a couple of you guys. Thank you for bringing up that, Diana. When I look at the assignments, there's a few different people who have missing assignments, and the assignments are for you guys, not for us. This is basically the assignments are you building your portfolios, right? And this is everything. Once we get to building out more aspects of our business model, this is the stuff that we're pulling from. This is what you're building off of. And so if you don't have these in place, it's going to be harder on you when it's 10 weeks from now and you're like, you're someone's asking you for resources. You're like, oh, I did that. Wait, where is it? Right. And you don't have it there. It's just more of having everything in one concise place. So I really admonish you guys to really make an effort, for those of you who are missing assignments, to go ahead and get the missing, even though we're past some of that time, get those missing assignments in there, because while it's fresh and you have everything in one collective place, it's going to help you out so much more in the long run. Anything else before we move on? All righty, let's get this show on the road. All right, so let me make sure I don't have notes to cover. Yeah, I talked about prototypes. RJ, is there anything that I have not covered that is outstanding before we jump into the new?
No, covered it all.
All right, so let's get started.
So sorry, Dr. D. So you want the workflow with the prototype, right? Video, so to speak,
Yeah, so your prototype video is of one of your workflows. Or are you saying you have a workflow written out and your
Yeah, I
prototype
got a
video?
workflow written out, exactly.
Email it all to us.
Okay.
Thank you. All righty. Any other questions? We are making progress. I'm loving it. All right. All right. So, oops, sorry. Hold on. Oh, darn. Hold on. I hit the wrong button. User error. Why does it keep sharing the wrong screen? All right, so my computer is not cooperating. 1 second. All right, we'll just work with it. All right, here we go. So let's talk through. So we talk through what is design thinking, right? And then we are moving into lean startup. Are any of you guys familiar with lean startup? Let me ask that question first, because this concept has been around for a little bit. And so I want to make sure that we kind of think through what you already know and have been exposed to. Have we heard of it? Have we thought about it? Have we worked in it? No? Okay.
I have not.
Okay, thank you. I like participation. And I'm like, let me make sure y'all are present with me. So basically, as we talked about before, that the lean design thinking and lean startup are the two fundamental concepts that make up this class. We briefly introduced both concepts and why we will combine them, why we do combine them for this class. So as we talk through design thinking for the past, man, what week is this? Is this week 7 or 6? Week 7? Ooh, y'all, we got like 3 weeks left. Can y'all believe it? And nobody's feeling my excitement and / we got to talk fast because we got a
That's
lot more
it.
weeks. What'd you say, Raynard?
Say that's it.
Yeah. We have
Wow.
3. Oh, actually, as I bring that up, some quick housekeeping things. We have 3 weeks left. As of next week, we'll start bringing in our speakers. We'll have a speaker on Monday. I believe it'll be us with you on Wednesday. Kind of working through that. And then the following week, I believe up until, and we'll have some time, like, you know, our speakers might take up an hour and there or hour and a half, and we'll have some time that we will do, you know, continue to iterate on some things with you guys in preparation. The big things that are coming up, and I'm not sure if we mentioned this as much in the beginning of the class. When the way it works is from here on out, the pieces that the speakers will be focusing on is helping you guys build out your business models, and building out like the key components of your business. And so in this class, when it comes to the end, we end on April 5th, but on April 5th, we officially end our cohort time to give you guys some prepare for your pitch night. And so we'll have some judges that will come on and help you guys do some pitch prep, and they will schedule some one-on-one time with you guys to help refine your pitches. And then pitch night, I believe, is scheduled for April 20. Where's my calendar? I want to say April 26th, but I might be wrong. 1 second. Yes, April 26th is when we have pitch night scheduled. And so between April 5th and April 26th, you guys need to put in some time. And so you can use the time that we would have been meeting. You'll have one-on-one time with the coaches. You'll have one-on-one time with Katie and myself. Use that time. Consider this not a warning, but a strong suggestion. Some people struggled with pitch night in our last cohort because they did not use that time. And the judges are very supportive, but these are professionals, and a lot of them have deep background in the spaces that you have. And so to put it nicely, they'll call you on your BS without hesitation. And then you're sitting there trying to shuffle, right? And so we don't want y'all in that situation, because with the last cohort, some of it was hard to watch. While people like are trying to shuck and jive, and you got a whole audience of people, it's open. It is virtual still, so it's open. You can invite family and friends. And for some people, we just kind of watch, and the more they tried to make up, and it's like, just say you don't know, please just say you don't know. And it's like, well, it's going to be this. No, it's not going to be that. Stop this. So please, please, please use this as time in between to really think about the nuances of your business, that we're going to touch on, right? Because the next 3 weeks really heavily builds upon the last 7 weeks. And right now we're really going to look at the business, right? Side of what you do, right? We've been focused on the problem and the solution, but the business that wraps around that has to make sense. You know, I have a saying that I tell every cohort: if your business is not making money, you do not have a business. You have a very expensive hobby. And that's what we're going to unpack in this next part, right? How do you make money, right? How do you make money to sustain your business? How much does it cost to do this business? And if all of that stuff doesn't make sense, it really doesn't matter how important the problem you're trying to solve. It really doesn't matter who the customer, you know, how well you can connect with the customer. And when I say it doesn't matter, let me rephrase that. You won't be able to truly solve that problem. Oh, he's a cutie pie. You won't be able to solve that problem for that customer. You won't be able to change the world with your solution if you financially, unless you have, you know, you're independently wealthy and you got a pocket of money that you could just pay people to solve their problems. Holla at me, I got some problems for you. You know what I mean? So if you are not in that situation, if we can't make the next 3 weeks make sense, then I want you guys to really take a hard look at your business and a hard look at the time and effort that you're about to embark on and spending on this. Because if these pieces don't add up, then you're going to find yourself very frustrated and stressed, because you're working on something that is missing a critical element to it. And so that is something that we spend a lot of time making sure you guys understand. All right. I didn't realize that my okay, here we go. So we talked about ideate. Ideate kind of covered the why and the what. And so the why, like the what and the why. What is the problem? You went through a whole discovery phase, the define phase, the develop phase, the delivery phase of how you were going to bring about that solution. Were all that we talked about when it came to design thinking. So Lean Startup covers three main tenets: build, measure, learn, right? So turning your ideas into products and building that MVP, right? Measuring, seeing how your customers respond and identify as early adopters, learning when to pivot and persevere, right? And these strategies are very important, because these are the things that really tell you how in these early stages of launching your business, how you're actually going to hit your markers, right? And so and when you think about, even, and we've been doing some of this now. So remember, we told you, take your storyboards, take it out, test it to people. That was you building. When the measuring is you ask, that's that testing, right? That's where you're measuring what you're doing and asking your customers, see how they respond, right? You're taking that feedback. Okay, this is what they love. This is what they didn't care that much about, right? Here's where I'm going to make some changes. That's a small pivot. Go back through that build cycle, right? Take that feedback, you do another build. Okay, now you're creating your paper prototypes, right? You go back through a cycle again and you're measuring, you're asking more people, you're getting more feedback, right? You're learning, hey, should I pivot or persevere? Like, do they love enough of what I got going on to keep it moving? Or do I need to make some other changes, right? And you can do this as many times as it takes, right? Because think about it. The way we have been doing our prototyping, from storyboards to paper prototypes, they're cheap, right? If you sit here and you come up with this amazing idea, and then you go find some developer or some platform and you launch this platform, you've spent money, you've spent time, and you don't know if it's going to work. You don't know if you're hitting the mark. I always tell people, like, on a really basic tenet, right? If you decided, I'm going to sell t-shirts, right? And you say, hey, I have this t-shirt that I really think is amazing, and I'm going to sell t-shirts, and I'm going to go to the bank, I'm going to get this loan, I'm going to open up this brick and mortar store in the mall, and I line up my line of t-shirts, I got my manufacturer, I got my shirts, let's go. And you open up and nobody shows up, and you don't sell not one shirt. You wasted a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of resources to find out the hard way you weren't solving a problem that your customers cared about, or not, or you were missing something. Maybe you were solving it, but you're missing either, what they're willing to pay for it, or some pieces. An easier way, find a marketplace, right? Like a flea market, right? And set up a table, put your shirts out there. Did they buy it? Yes. If they don't, how much did you lose, right? You might have lost a couple of hours that day, but you found out very quickly, right? People, you got to interact with customers. They gave you some real-time feedback. You found out very quickly and very cheaply, were people interested in your product? Were you solving a problem the way your customer base wanted it solved, in the fashion that you could address them? Were you addressing the right customers, right? And there's so many really easy ways to test these ideas out, without you wasting a lot of time, money, and effort. And that's what the Lean Startup Framework is all about, right? Fail fast, right? Get those ideas out there fast. find out quickly, get your feelings hurt in 24 hours instead of 24 years to find out that you are not actually addressing someone's meeting the need of the audience that you're targeting, right? You'll learn how to iterate, learn when to pivot, learn when to persevere. All these things you want to be able to get through them quickly, because the quicker you can fail, the quicker you can succeed. And that's what we're really trying to press upon you with this stage of the process. A quick pause. One of the things that people always ask us is, are we going to get a business plan out of going through this program? We don't actually focus on the business plan in this program. Part of Lean Startup, we actually spend a lot of our effort on the business model. And that's because the business plan is more implementation driven and the business model is hypothesis driven. And what that really means is, when you're writing a business plan, you sit down and you write 30 pages and then you're saying, this is how I'm going to do something. But you don't actually know if that's how you're going to do it because you haven't tested it, right? And so you're doing a lot of educated guessing, right? The business model, with each piece you're testing, right? And so with each piece that you're going through that cycle, you're trying it out, you're testing it on people, you're testing it on people. And so then with you, as you go through those cycles, you're building your business, but each increment of your business, you're doing that process of coming up with a hypothesis, you're testing it, you're measuring it, and then you're iterating on it, you're pivoting or you're persevering. So each piece, by the time it comes together, it's not a guess. You've talked to your customers, you put it out there, you pull that market research, you pull all the tools. But a business model leads to a business plan. So if you want to really think about it, think about writing a paper, right? The business model is the equivalent of the outline or a PowerPoint before you do that paper, right? We're covering all the highlights of these are in the one snapshot, my business highlights that I've tested. And now I can go back and add that detailed verbiage that really breaks down what I'm saying, all the things that I learned while testing, all the notes, all the things I've been putting in my portfolio, yes, right, that I've been testing, all of that goes into your business plan. So we equip you to build that business plan, but our focus is to make sure that you have a solid business model to build from. So we're really about building that foundation that you build upon, and then you can create that plan, or you can do with all the other tenets of your business. This is just kind of getting you that first foot in that process. Y'all with me so far? All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So and so as we said with design thinking, and it was kind of this process where we really kind of went through understanding our users, understanding the problem space and the solution. And Lean Startup is this kind of build, measure, learn. For a long time, these systems were independent. So you learned one or the other, but not both. And after a while, people were like, well, how do I build, measure, learn when I don't really know who I'm building for? Right? I don't know anything about my customers, but I'm sitting here building and testing, and I keep going through the cycle, and I'm like, why is it failing? Because I don't know anything about them, and I don't really know if my solution is solving their problem, right? And so I think that's when we as a community, as a user experience community, we really started to realize you need both. You need to understand about the problem space and solution space before you go into building that solution and that business around that solution space. So, questions on that so far? Y'all real quiet. Hello, anybody there?
Still here.
Okay. Are we understanding why? And I'm really laying I like to lay the foundation, because then I like to throw a lot of information out at you. So I really want to make sure that you understand why we are pulling the tools that we have together to get you guys there, right? And so as I talked about, the design thinking offers guidance and uncovering like the needs of your people and identifying the problem. Why is it so important to separate that or to dive into that before we go into building for people? Like, just kind of give me some insight on what you guys are thinking. Like, why do we think that is so crucial?
I guess we'll be working, I mean, it would defeat the purpose of putting in all that hard work. It's like working backwards.
Okay. Okay. Have you ever experienced a product or service where it comes close to meeting your need, but then it's just like some glaring piece of it that they seem to miss? And it was just like, well, who did y'all build this for? Anybody give me an example of a product or service you've had, like that. It's a wonky fit for the problem that you actually needed solved. Nobody.
I guess I would say Instacart. I started Instacarting and I quickly stopped because it's almost like, great, you're shopping for me, but it's either I was getting people that was like trying to hurry up and just get everything without asking me, like, hey, I didn't find grapes. Did you want anything else? Like, I can just do a bad job myself. Like, why do a bad job for me? So like, it's a great idea, but at the same time, I think if Instacart went back and kind of asked people why they Instacart and how they can do better, then yeah. But I think Instacart for me, Instacart is one.
Okay, no, this is a good example. I can do a bad job by myself. Reynard, you started to say something?
No, I was just thinking. I couldn't think of anything. But
Okay.
that was a good example, though.
Yeah, I think we all have had those experiences where it's just like, thanks, but no thanks. Like, if y'all would have thought through some of these tenants a little bit better, I would definitely be game. But yeah, no, this ain't really doing it for me. So I think that's a really good example. Thank you, Diana. Let me see. Okay, we have time. I am going to, so what we're going to do is the lean canvas stuff is we're going to do a deeper dive into that in the next couple of weeks and even today. But what I want to do is a quick pivot on to, as we make this transition from talking about our model, our solutions and our problems, and moving into the business space. I know some of this will be really basic, but I find it necessary to cover because several of you have been in business already, or you have your business pieces. So some of what I'm going to cover is really, really basic. So I talk fast. By the way, I talk fast in general. So at any point in time, I'm going too fast, just be like, oh, slow down, or can you rewind that back? I'm not offended. I understand that. But because I get excited and I'm trying to get a lot of information out, like I go a mile a minute. So anyway, this disclaimer. But some of this will be pretty redundant for some of you because you've already done your businesses. But these are things I like to reinforce because some of you are actually moving into the space brand new. And so we like to lay this foundation on in terms of business one-on-one, just some real basic stuff. And our speaker on Monday is going to probably do a better job of diving into some of these topics. I just want to kind of introduce some of the things that we're going to press upon you with our speakers, and some of the things that are going to come up when it comes to making your business make sense. And so between not just our judges, but when you talk to people about your business, you want to make sure it adds up for people, right? Like the pieces of your business make sense. So really basic, some key points in terms of starting a business, making a plan. Starting a business is more than an article of incorporation. I can't tell you how many times I've been at networking mixers and people, and I'm like, hey, tell me about your business. It's like, oh, I have an LLC. And what else? That's it. That's all they've done. That's all they got. And, in their mind, they have a business. It's like, you got step one, right? And there's a whole lot more to building a business than just incorporating. And so making sure you kind of think through all of that. Be kind to yourself. I think this point is not pressed upon enough. Starting a business is, and this is one thing I always say, no one can teach you entrepreneurship. It's learned in situ, it's learned by doing. And everyone who takes these entrepreneurship programs and courses, we can teach you the skills of how to process and navigate, but it's really a journey that is so different. Like me and you can start the exact same business and our journey will be completely different because of really random nuances. And so be kind to yourself and give yourself to space to grow and to make mistakes, and use all of your resources too many people stifle their businesses because they're not paying attention to how much resources are out there, because we know it's hard. And don't be afraid to ask for help. And this is very big issue for solopreneurs. I find a lot of solopreneurs that are drowning because they're trying to do it all, because somehow they believe that they had to do it all, and you don't. There's so much government set aside, there's so many programs, there's so many resources, and I'll talk about some of that at the end. But I want you guys to know how to leverage all of that, because it gets hard, and what actually happens is sometimes in that you stifle your business. And we actually have another cohort of CEOs, and these are people who their business are high growth high growth revenue earning companies. And as we talk to them, and there's some of them are talking about some of the growing pains. And so they have either a solopreneur or their core team, and it's hard for them to grow because it's like, I can't trust my baby with somebody I don't know. And it's hard for them to bring other people onto their team. It's like, well, what if they won't take care of my baby the way I will? And it's like, well, if you try to do it all on your own, your business will die, right? Like, and so you can't be all the things for your business, especially as it grows. And there's actually a big change that you have to make going from being a founder of your business to the CEO of your business. And I don't think people pay enough attention to that, right? Because there's something, when you're the founder, you have to wear all the hats, right? You got to be all 20 different things, because your business is so early on, it's hard to outsource it because you're still defining the pieces as you're moving through it. But as your business is growing, you can be in the weeds of marketing and in the engineering room at the same time, in development, and in the weeds, there's no capacity. And so your business is stifled because of your limited capacity. And so that unwillingness to let go kills your business, right? And so those are some of the things that we kind of want people to really keep in mind as you go through building and growing your businesses. Some quick things we were talking about: assessing personal and business need, the importance of a business model, understanding the business components. Remember early on, I think this was the first cohort, first session we did, where we talked about like our calendars and how much time that we have to set aside to grow our business. This is something I always come back to, and it's really important because we've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs who have amazing ideas, but their business suffers because they're trying to be 110% on their business, but then all this life stuff is happening too, and they haven't learned to do them side by side, right? There are seasons where you could be, or not even seasons, there are days, right? I could be 110% of my business a day, and tomorrow it gets 5% of me because the rest of my life needs more. And that's okay, right? Like I always say that, that balance our view of balance is false, right? It's the rule of average, right? That in average, you're balanced across, but there are some days you are as unbalanced as it gets, and that's okay, right? This is all goes back to being kind to yourself. That there are some days, if you have kids, if you got another job, right, where you're doing this in kind of your part-time, all of that matters, right? And the funding for your business, right? Do you have savings? Do you have something set aside for the rainy days? Because some days, depending upon the stage of your business, you really need to think about how much of you that you can afford to invest into your business. Like, that, and I always tell people, especially for our communities, for founders of color and women, the old rhetoric of, borrow startup money from, your family. And it's like, for a lot of us, the most our families can provide us is an applause, right? We don't have those set asides to quit our jobs and just run our businesses independently. And even with our businesses, the ones who can, we're not in a space where we can afford too many rainy days with the ways our businesses are currently designed, right? And so understanding all of that, you take that into mind, especially what kind of risk you're willing to take on and how you design your business in its growth to actually thrive in those seasons, right? And so all these things are questions you're constantly asking yourself, right? Because as you're building these businesses, you have to think about the toll and impact it takes on you through that process. So all those things to keep in mind. How you structure your business is also important. And when we have our attorney on, you can ask her more questions if you have questions on about this. But are you going to be an LLC, a C Corp, an S Corp, a partnership, a sole proprietorship? All these things are things you want to really kind of think about in terms of the nature of your business. Other considerations, selecting a business name. And this is actually kind of funny. I've seen some people get really creative and then can't nobody remember their business because you spend all your time like, dang, what's their business again? And so you want to really kind of think about everything from, and the other thing that is also an issue, and we can get in all these things, we'll do a deeper dive. So this is just kind of a high level brushstroke over this. But one of the things that we love to do as a people, sometimes we love to name our businesses after ourselves. And depending upon the future of your business, that could be good or bad. I always tell people, think of Famous Amos Cookies, right? And so when he exited that business and sold that business, he lost the right to use his name. And so he could have unnamed cookies, but he could never do Amos anything cookies, right? And so that is something as we think about the naming and identification of our business, what is the future? How do we plan on exiting that business, right? Do I want to lose my identity with that exit, right? And so those are things that you really kind of want to think about, right? Business identification numbers, licenses, permits, taxes, accounting systems, all these things like your bookkeeping, right? A lot of things, a lot of people struggle with basic bookkeeping of their business, right? It makes sense for them, but it doesn't make sense when, like, for example, when PPP loans came down, a lot of women in minority-owned businesses did not qualify because their bookkeeping did not make sense, right? It did not have the checks and balances in place that they could receive these set-asides, right? And we all know about taxes, right? There's what's the saying? The only things that are certain is death and taxes or something like that. Like we'll leave that alone. In terms of licenses and permits, right? Making sure you're legit with your businesses, because all these things, it might not matter when you start, but at some point in time, you leave these boxes unchecked, it will come back to haunt you. And it always feel like it's at the worst possible time in the course of your business that these things will happen. And so it makes a lot of sense to do these things very early on. Other business assistance areas, marketing, advertising, sales, tax knowledge, insurance. So this goes back to, as you're starting your business, you wear all the hats, and that's natural, right? As you grow your business, one of the things that's really important, especially as we go through this business development process, think about the things that you do for your business that you might not do well or you might not enjoy doing. And you want to identify those areas as soon as possible, because as soon as you start to get, some positive cash flow, you really want to think of, how can I start to offload these things that, one, I don't do well, two, I ain't got no business doing, right? And like real talk, if you can't balance the checkbook, you ain't got no business doing the taxes for your business, right? Like don't do the things that will set you up for failure, right? Because, even though you're growing with your business, you're like, I can do that. No, no, you could, but should you, right? And so I want you guys to kind of keep those things in mind, right? Insurance for your business, that's a big thing. A lot of people don't get insurance for their businesses, and that can create a lot of liability. Diana, I remember this was actually recent. There was a story about a girl who went to a hair salon and the hairdresser put either the curling iron or something too close to a spray can and it blew up like on her face. And it was a whole, and she was uninsured, all this. It was just one of those whole scenarios, like, like the domino effect of that. But something as simple as, or as like, it was really random. Like, it was like, I think that's what it was. It was like a spray can. It couldn't have been a curling iron, because now my mind is not understanding how, unless it was like the ones with the ovens. I don't know. It was something and something, and it was an explosion in her face.
Yeah, it was heat too close to one of the cans.
Yeah,
they put
hot, yeah.
And I think it was a crumb, but whatever it was, the heater part of it was like too close to the can. Like they put the can down right next to it and it blew up. And unfortunately, it definitely affected the girl that was in the chair. But yeah, I remember that story.
Yeah, right. And it's who expects stuff like that to happen, right? Like, that is, I've been to lots of hair salons and it's a lot of stuff on them, like, because they don't have a lot of space. It's a lot of stuff in a small space. Like a freak accident like that, like now, like she about to lose, a whole lot because she wasn't insured. right? Like, and so this is when they come after you, right? And so it's really important that we separate our business from our personal, right? Because if we don't have our business set up the proper way in terms of license and insurance, etc., then they coming for you, right? And so the question is, if God forbid anything happens to your business that causes it, to some negative repercussions, does it come back to you? Are your personal assets lost in that because you did not do your due diligence and properly setting those things up, right? And so these are things like, real talk, you want to be mindful of. And it's like all kind of, like things like insurance and stuff that we put in place. It's annoying, it's costly, yes, but it's important. And the not having it can cost us more, right? And so just kind of things are not, and there are a lot of different programs and stuff in place that, that assist you with these different resources at some level, that it makes a lot of sense to investigate. And this is, again, knowing the resources and knowing how to take advantage of them. Uh, Same thing with business finances, presentation skills, communication skills, the banking services, etc. Something as simple as presentation skills. We have had entrepreneurs that come through our program where the mentors and some of the mentors are investors, and they'll come through and they're like, this person has a great idea, right? But I will not invest into this business. I will not work with this business if this person is leading the charge. Let's be real, just because we come up with the idea, sometimes we're not the best representation of our business, right? And if we're lacking those presentation communication skills, right? Like I'm an introvert, right? And we literally, for my company, we have a person on our team where she is the face of the team. She is who you interact when you do business with us. You meet me later after you sign the contract. After we've gotten your deposit, then you meet me. It's like, okay, now let's get the business. But I'm not the person you meet when you come to my business. It's not good for business. I recognize that about myself, and I recognize what an injustice it will do to our business if I am the person you interact with, right? And so all these things are just really a pause to realize what you are amazing and great at and what you can maintain while your business is starting, but quickly offload as your business grows, because there's just certain things with my business I ain't got no business doing, right? And so like just learning to pay attention to that as you evolve in your business, and being honest with yourself with these different pieces. And these links, some of them are for like the Gainesville area because that's where we launched the program, but some of them are pretty broad. There are a lot of programs that are available to support the growth of your business. There is a lot of money that goes into small business support in this country, and there's a lot of people that do not take advantage of it. So, look into your local chamber, right? They have lots of training programs and resources and opportunity. SBA, right? That is kind of your stomping ground. If you're not registered on their listserv to get a list of their opportunities, you're missing out, right? Black Innovators Alliance, Florida Enterprise. There's so many different programs, and this is a short list, but there's so many different programs that are out there that have resources. There are programs that we have free interns that pay the interns to work for you in all levels, like law schools. If you're near any college or university, oftentimes the law students have programs, the business school, because all these programs, especially with the universities, they have their students need a real-time practice in terms of working with real businesses. And they do that by working with businesses like yours, right? And with that, they have it's a pretty amazing opportunity because they have oversight, right? This affects their grades, so somebody's making sure they don't deliver garbage, right? And so when you interact with these programs, you can get some really good support. Elizabeth, you have a question?
I did. I was looking at one company that was offering like interns and things like that. And one of the criteria setups was that, you had to have like a brick and mortar. Like they wanted the intern to be able to go somewhere for this amount of time in a day, be like personally over, supervised, and like the remote setting wasn't really helpful for them. And honestly, just being transparent, it really discouraged me against like getting some interns, even though I know a lot of people are like, oh, get an intern, get an intern, get an intern. They can help. I also found like, I feel like I wouldn't have time to like train the intern, do the work, so it becomes one of those. But just, if I don't know if anyone else has had that experience when it comes to interns, but I don't, my business is completely remote because of what I do. I don't have to have a brick and mortar. I didn't want to have a brick and mortar, but I noticed that for certain things, it kind of reduced some of my opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Some do just find another program. All of them are not like that. I remember we had, and I can't remember the name of the program, we had a marketing intern in 2019. And she was an A student. All interns are not created equal. And we've had C- students as interns before. And this A student, we are still using stuff that she has created for us for our marketing literature. Like it was like so stellar that we to this day are reusing a lot of the materials that she created, and all of our interns have been remote. So don't get discouraged if you've had a bad experience with one program. They're all are not created equally. And I know programs like, for example, I know the Career Source has an internship program. I do believe they require brick and mortar, but there are other ones. And actually, and before this class is over, I'll share another resource, and that I think they're still recruiting for interns for the summer, if not the fall. And they also, because I made sure I called, and they were like, there's, if you're not in the local Gainesville area, then it will have to be remote because their students can't travel. And I was like, no, like our entrepreneurs actually prefer it that way. And there's like, that's great. And like for them, it's a numbers game, right? They have more students and they have projects. And so you actually have to sign up for a minimum of 2 interns or more, kind of a deal. So there are a lot of programs, but you bring up a good point, right? Anytime you bring anybody else into your business, a lot of our business lives in our head, and a lot of us have not created standard operating procedures, SOPs, for our business. So we don't have the things laid out for our business that makes it easier to bring other people in. And I'm going to talk about some tools a little bit later that helps you do that. That will make some of that a little bit easier, but that is a challenge. One of the tools that I'll talk about in a little bit that I used to use frequently was Fancy Hands. Fancy Hands and I were like, we went back, we were thick as thieves. But when I first started using Fancy Hands, that was one of my biggest frustrations. Was I had to write out these detailed instructions. And by the time I did all that, I was like, I could have did this myself. Like, you know what I mean? Like I didn't have time to do that. And so it just became harder to use the service. But then I found other tools where I could just record myself saying, do this, this, and this. And I can do a screen capture while I'm saying it. And that took me 5 minutes, and it got all the same instructions out there, right? And so you can do stuff like that in terms of like, and like even now when I get interns, like my early sessions is a brain dump. Let me tell you about what we do. Here's all the 50 million things that we do. Here's the things that, I don't want to do. And here's the things I want you to figure out. You know what I mean? And it's really broadly braced. And it's just a lot of like, there's different methods and tools to get through that where it's not so painstaking on you and your time. Does that answer your question or help a little bit? Elizabeth? Hopefully. Okay. Elizabeth, did that kind of answer your question?
Yes, it does. It does. Like I said, like I know there's others out there and stuff, but I agree with you. Like sometimes to do the training and stuff, I'm definitely the type of person that's like, I can do it myself. And learning to delegate is a major deal, but having people to delegate to, trying to grow the business and have the funds to be able to hire someone. But now everybody's an entrepreneur, everybody's a freelancer, and the prices are interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so that, that's also a obstacle as well. The pricing is interesting, but the work is not.
I think that's a
So
very good point.
yeah, so I've had some, I've tried other avenues, and really hit a lot of roadblocks, because people say what they want to do, but they don't always deliver on it. So that's been my experience.
No, that is very, and even like I said, even with the interns we've gotten, it's hit or miss. It's no different than when we've hired consultant, these freelancers to do some of the work. It is also very hit or miss. And that's just, and there are different processes I have learned, and we can kind of talk about that, and especially would love to hear other people ideas to put in place to vet people a little bit better. And so, for example, we had, like I said, an intern that was, C minus at best. And so then from that process, I've learned that I have my, especially marketing interns, they have to write a piece, right? And so it's like create a marketing, op for, and we give them a topic and we just see how they do, right? Because if you can't do this, then you probably can't do the other things, right? And so we have other ways of vetting early on that saves us on the time that we would have spent in realizing that you actually can't do the job. And so there's different tools that you can put, but I do understand, like, when you're already short on time, one, training people, and then two, figuring out that they're not going to do a great job is just disheartening. But it is the nature of doing business. But the other thing that I also do, and this is why being in a cohort like this is important, a lot of us leverage the same type of services. And so majority of the people I work with now, minus our interns, come via referral. And so it's like, you use who? How they do? Okay, great. Let me use them too, right? And so and that saves me some of that time of vetting, because I know people who are, serious about their business and they operate and they have high standards like mine or higher. Then I know if you could deal, like, and I have some friends that are super type A, right? And I get all my referrals from them because, like, I don't even care about half of the stuff you do. So they good for you, then they good for me, right? And so, like, those are some of the people I get my referrals from. Then it's just it helps with that time save. And so 63% of small business owners feel overwhelmed with the number of technologies available to run their business. In short, running a business is hard. And when everyone say, hey, there's these resources, hey, this is tools, who has time? It's hard by itself. And now adding all these other pieces is making it even harder. And it's just so much. And like the things that you get accustomed to is like, oh, that's not relevant anymore. That's outdated. Oh, try this. Oh, try that. It becomes exhausting. And so I always try to say, get your core, right? Think about the core things that your business reuses frequently, the tools that your business, and then the things that your business do frequently, and what are some tools you can help ease the load on that. And so I always like to kind of put up a list of some of my favorite tools. And so, as I mentioned before, Fancy Hands used to be my go-to. I don't use her as much. But I loved Fancy Hands. And there are other tools before I like this. If you guys aren't familiar, Fancy Hands is a virtual assistant. And I would use Fancy Hands for business and non-business stuff. It became a unhealthy addiction, and not wanting to do a lot of tasks. So I would, even down to calling my cell phone provider, and I don't want to be on hold, I'll give Fancy Hand that task and they deal with all of that. And when they finally connect with a real person, then they call me into the call. But just all of the navigating, or if I have an event coming up, for my company or for myself, it's like, I want X amount of venues, X amount of a list of X amount of venues with these criterias, and they'll go through all of that legwork, right? And so again, my business, I have 2 co-founders and 1 employee. And so there's just a lot of things we just don't have time to do. And so we offload it to these different platforms. So Fancy Hands is one, but you can use a real virtual assistant, and you can also do those for at an hourly rate if you know exactly what you need. Calendly, you guys use that for scheduling, and that is really easy. You can just set your work hours in there, and you set it and forget it. And it's just kind of the signature of your email where people know how to book a meeting with you, right? And you can set it in terms of, 10-minute consultation, 30-minute, whatever, and you set your stuff, and then that saves you on so much time, because that's the thing that we talked about in terms of when we were talking about our time at the very beginning of the class. There's so many things that hog your time, and that, they suck up 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here. Next thing you know, you've lost the whole day. You didn't accomplish the things you set out to do. So learning how to leverage your tools is really important. DocuSign or DocHub, whatever it is, to sign stuff virtually. Like, my cell phone is my virtual office, right? Like, I have my calendar on there, I have my signature on there. CamScan is my scanner on my phone, so I can scan everything in. So especially when it comes to taxes and receipts, right? Every time I spend money, I scan it in, and it's all saved in one place. So I use my CamScan for that. Fax Zero, I can fax from my cell phone, right? Slack, communicate with my group, and we can kind of do all that business stuff. G Suites, sharing documents with my team, with our subcontractors, with our accountants. Everything happens through G Suites. ClickUp is our okay, here's our task that everyone needs to get done. Here's the who's done what, who has been assigned to what. Loom is the one I was mentioning to you, Elizabeth, about you can do a screen capture recording. And so Loom is part of why I don't use Fancy Hands anymore, because it's just easier for me to just sit here and then for 10 minutes be like, okay, so here's the website, go here. All right, when you see this, I want you to change this to this and make this here. Okay, when you do this, go, like, and I can kind of provide those instructions. And instead of writing them out, I talk, as you see, very fast. So I can just kind of provide those verbal instructions. I can point around, click, and get stuff done without me having to waste any more time. So these are some of my, and Otter AI. Otter AI became my love during the pandemic. Otter AI is a recording and transition, what is the word? It records
transcribe. Yeah.
Transcribing platform. During the pandemic, I couldn't tell you, like, in a day how many Zoom calls I got on. It just became so fatigued. And so me and my team, we hook up our Otter AI is connected to our Zoom. So once our Zoom starts, our Otter AI starts, and everyone, even with our clients, we use it, and they're aware, because you don't record without people's permission, just kind of FYI. But it's recorded, it's transcribed, because one of the things that we were finding with our team, and which really kind of led us to using Otter AI more frequently, is we'll have these great brainstorming sessions, like, oh man, we should do this and this. Anybody wrote that down? Oh, dang. Anybody remember what we said? Oh. And so it became easier to kind of have it there and transcribe. I'm still a little weary about AI, I ain't gonna lie. And I'm like, what are they gonna do with my voice? What are they doing with my stuff in my system? But it became a situation where the good outweighed the bad. And so we use it, and especially, like I said, to kind of capture some of our more important sessions. But it's just really good for me to have that transcription, and I can kind of go back and just kind of abstract things as needed. What are some of y'all favorite tools? Because again, I know some of you guys have been in business for a little while. What are some of your favorite resources to help manage your business and kind of take some of the load off when you don't have a team to do these things?
I'm learning new things now. I'm writing all this stuff down. I use the Stride app, which logs all my miles when I'm going from client to client, or from client to home, or home to, like, if I need to buy products and stuff like that. But I'm digging the CamScan, so I'm looking into that because I have to save all my receipts.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing that through QuickBooks. So I don't know. I'm learning new stuff.
Yeah, and we still use QuickBooks too, but I don't know about you. Something would happen where I would leave a store, and by the time I got to my house, I don't know where the receipt went. I don't know. It was here. I promise you it was
This
here.
is true. I try to take pictures of everything, but that even becomes tedious. So
yep. And me too, but then I take pictures of everything, not just my receipts. So now I'm looking at pictures of random stuff, like, where's the receipt? And so scanning it all into one place just kind of gave me peace of mind, because I was defeating myself. So what are some other tools you guys use?
I just started using HoneyBook. Well, not just, but in this past year, from as like for my CRMs, because it does everything all in one, like with the contracts, the payments, everything all together.
Mhm.
Whereas before I was kind of like creating emails within my regular email and like giving people links to everything, which is a whole nother ball game. So
Yeah.
that was actually very helpful. But then getting clients acclimated to using it was also an issue in the beginning, but they're starting to do better now. I like it because I'm able to have that read receipt, know when they read it, you know, date times and things like that, and be able to follow up with people. It keeps my tasks in there. Even if I don't follow the task, it's still there. So, you know, I have that. But I use DocuSign and I use G Suite as well. And that's pretty much all that I really use right now. And that kind of runs me through everything because a lot of my work is verbal.
Yeah.
And so it all can be done. If I have to send follow up, it can all be done right in the CRM. So
Okay.
that's been helpful.
Okay. All right. Well, like I said, it's ideas of if you are looking for tools to kind of help minimize some of the things you have to do, right? And even if it's not with your clients, it could be with other entities, right? Like, so these are just kind of like, a suite of tools, like I said, that I found helpful, but there's so much more out there. What was the large file transfer file that you mentioned, RJ?
You transfer. I was gonna say I was gonna let everybody go, but I I mean I like to think that I'm running this multi, thousand air firm. And I think my clients think I am because they call me for so many things. So it is a lot of technology that allows me to be productive because otherwise it would be a thunderstorm. But yeah, so WeTransfer is one that I do use. I have a lot of times for some of my social media clients, if I'm creating content for them, sending, Gmail only allows you to send about 3 or 4 photo attachments, or maybe 5 at the most, actually, photo attachments at once. And if I'm trying to do like a month calendar and keeping it organized, I'm going to have to send several emails to get those images over. So WeTransfer was very useful for me to send, folders, like a lot. I mean, I can send, I'm not even sure how much would max out. I've sent like 40, 50 files at a time. And WeTransfer, they'll hold it for you for like up to a week, and then they kind of remove it from their platform to allow people to send without crashing their site. So it is very useful, and it was no charge for that. I use Copper. Copper is a CRM software as well. I like Copper because it's an extension on Google. It's an extension on my Google Chrome. And Copper, basically, if you email me and I don't have your email saved, it'll automatically save it it'll ask me first, but it'll transfer all their information into the CRM directly. So I don't have to do that extra step. And honestly, Zapier is good too. You can, because Elizabeth, you mentioned like you had HoneyBook. But Zapier is good if you don't have, like, I have Copper, so I don't really need that feature. But if you have most of the other CRM, Zapier is really good. Yes, I will drop it in the chat to connect those features so that when people email you and they're not on your CRM, Zapier can kind of help you out with that and connect you on that. And I love Zapier. I use Zapier for other things. It's more of automation processes to notify me or to do follow-up emails automatically, stuff like that. So it is these platforms do have small learning curves, but they're really not that bad. It seems a little intimidating at first. And honestly, any of these platforms, even the resources that you see here on the slide, oftentimes you will see that when you get any of these tools, there is a learning curve, but you got to commit. If you commit like an hour to, and I mean, that's even on the farthest side, you could do 30 minutes to really focus and try to understand what you should be doing, maybe watch a YouTube video on it and really commit to it. It's a little challenging to get in the beginning, but once you've learned how to use it, it really saves a lot. It saves you a lot. But for a lot of people, they get intimidated by the beginning. They don't like to use it. And they won't use it, and they try to do everything manually. But that would be just my word of encouragement for any tool that you decide to use, that you should definitely commit to wanting to learn how to use it, because they're designed to make your life easier. So I noticed you didn't have Canva on there, Dr. Eugene.
Yeah, there are. This is actually an older slide that needs to be updated. So
Ah.
Canva, Hootsuite, there's a lot of other things that
Mm.
we use for that is not listed, but this slide needs to be updated. Elizabeth, you had a question?
Just a little bit more of a request. If anybody has a tool that they use that allows them to, and I think you mentioned Hootsuite, and that might fit, but that allows you to post across social media. One of the things that I find that I'm still trying to find something that works for it is posting across social media, but also being able to have the hyperlink if I'm like tagging someone's business page or something like that. A lot of times you can, the business suite will allow you to write whatever you want and add the photos, videos, etc., and schedule it out. But the reality is, like, it doesn't allow me to do it across all platforms, number one. And then number two, like, I can't tag anybody's name or anything like that. So if I wanted to schedule a post to highlight say a client's page or something like that, like, it doesn't, there's no hyperlink, it doesn't go blue when they post.
Gotcha.
And so I don't know if anybody has figured out this situation, but if y'all do, please drop the link. I would love to know what it is, and so I can look into it and see if it's helpful for me.
Well, I can answer that. And so, yeah, Hootsuite actually is a good one. Later is good. It really depends on the platform to know which one of the scheduling apps would be best beneficial to you. Hootsuite and HubSpot are the best ones, I think, only because they work with all the platforms. Later works with like Instagram and a few others, but it doesn't work with Facebook or stuff like that. So depending on the channels or the which platforms you're looking to post on. However, none of them really are effective if you don't have the paid version of it. So I tried for the longest to avoid having to pay for them, or try to use, even if I use the trial. Buffer is good too. Thanks, Shonna.
Oh yeah, we use Buffer for quite some time. I haven't used Buffer lately, so I know people change as they start to make money, but I remember we used Buffer for about a year or two before we had the resources to pay. And RJ has a point. There, some of them, they can be a little wonky when they're free, but you can make it work. Loom, I've used that for free for quite some time. Cam Scam, I'm still using the free version of that. Otter, I'm still using the free version of that. So a lot of these platforms, I'm cheap, so it takes me I got to be all the way sold in before I up that. Another one I forgot to mention that I do a lot of is Speechify for reading documents. I like to read and multitask, so having things read to me is super helpful. So I do a lot of Speechify, and it's another one, Natural Reader, are the two where, you can just put in the link to a document and it'll read it to you, especially when we're, iterating on some documents. Having it read to me is good for me to listen to where some of the errors, and then I can go back, but or if I'm just kind of skimming through some stuff, I can listen to it while I'm washing dishes or folding clothes, right? And so Speechify and Natural Reader. And the other one that's not on this slide, that's become one of my co-founders is obsessed with, is Chat GPT. Have y'all really gotten into that? I'm telling you, Chat GPT is love when it comes to creating even some of like your marketing content, right? Your social media content. Like, you give it some keywords and it will create, like, even with some of our use case scenarios of our users, it's like, I want a story of a girl experiencing this, issue, but she finds a solution that helps her this way. And then we post it on there. Like, here's how users use our platform, right? Like, it's Chat GPT has become like a lot of the things that we have put out in the last month has had some kind of Chat GPT framing in the background to our writings lately. And so just something like, again, not mentioned on this slide because the slide is older, but if you haven't played with it, and I know y'all don't always have the time, it is definitely a really cool resource. One of the things we're gonna do after you guys finish your paper prototypes is we're gonna create wireframes. And this is, so remember I said with your paper prototypes, you worked on the functionality of your tools. And so it's, you know, how people navigate. And then the wireframes, it's a little bit more of that, but it's also the look and feel of it. And this is more of an exercise of you thinking through those nuances of the look and feel you want your digital presence to personify. And this is something that we do before you start to, you know, before you start to engage with the developer or working on, like, you know, your MVP. I want you guys to kind of think through these processes. So we'll talk about that next week, but I have it here as this is some of the tools that we use for those kind of wireframe solutions. And so this is some of the ones that we use. This is also outdated. There's a list, a host of tools that is not on here that we'll talk about next time, but prototyping tools are also really important. Okay, so we talked about tools. Let's talk about, you know, how to start a startup. Again, this is pretty quick. You guys know this stuff in some capacity. Live in the future, what's missing in the world, write it down, make a prototype, show the prototype to 100 people, all the things we talked about. Launch, let everyone know you've made something, look for funding, build a version, one at the same time, register your company, find co-founders, iterate on the prototype, follow up with users. Are they coming back? Do they love you? Do they hate you? Get 1,000 users, grow 5% a week, keep growing, and success, right? That's how we all kind of like it to go. We know it doesn't always quite work out this way, but this is kind of the goal of a startup, right? You want to kind of see it go through, you know, all these iterations, all right? And, you know, I always tell someone, if your startup is a startup for 5 years, you don't have a startup, you have a failed business, right? A startup, it should be what it sounds like, a startup, right? And after your business gets tracking, so if you are still at this, you know, early stage and you're, you know, several years in, that's a problem, right? If you're, sorry, I was circling the wrong thing in terms of, okay, we're getting ready to launch. I've heard people getting ready to launch for about 3 years of their business, right? Like that, if you haven't done it, you start to think about what are some of the challenges that are keeping back. Sometimes it is life, right? And sometimes, and this is one thing we always ask entrepreneurs, you could have the best idea, you could have the best business, but is this something you are in a position to launch right now? Because the business takes so much of you to be invested in it. And if you can't do it right now, is it something you need to wait for later? Right. And so these are all the things that you kind of want to think about as you go through your startup cycle. So, all right, let's jump ahead because I talked too much today and we're losing time. So one of the things that we spend a lot of time in this cohort talking about is the money, right? That financial modeling. So your cost, your revenue, your cash flow, your income, that money is, again, we're here to make money, right? Even if you're not here to make a lot of money, you're here to make money, right? That is the nature of having a for-profit business, right? Is the business. And so we spend some time understanding that cash flow of your business. Sean is gonna join us, I think not next week, but the week after, and he's gonna have a session on your revenue. We have contracted Sean to have one-on-one time with you all. It is really important that you use that time with him and you navigate that time to really find out as you communicate your business to other people. And the question they're always asking is, how do you make money with this business? And not that I need to see your books, but when you talk about it, it should be clear. This is how much my business costs to run. This is where I make money, right? These are my streams of revenue, right? This is how my business survives. These are the things that show that your business are stable. And so these are things you want to be able, in either at a high level or deeper level, really be able to understand for yourself, but also explain to potential business partners, to investors, to mentors, because people can't help you if they can't see the connection. So there's lots of different ways businesses make money, right? And so there are a ton of different revenue models that exist. You can make money through advertising. So a lot of people sometimes say, like, my business makes money because I sell my product or service. But what else? Because there's so much money we leave on the table when we don't explore the other avenues that they're out there to make revenue, right? So there's advertising, there's commerce, there's selling data. If your business requires you to take in an enormous amount of data about people for you to operate, you can do other things with that data. Selling data is kind of wonky, aka Google, but it's a stream of revenue, right? Sponsorship, donations, build to sale, subscription, mobile gaming, licensing, right? Education, right? You guys, especially for a lot of you who've been in your spaces, either with your business or in some space for some time, you have a lot of knowledge. You can host some workshops, right? You could do some training sessions for other people who are trying to be like you. All of those are revenue streams, right? And sometimes what you started your business off as this is how I'm going to make money might not be the biggest stream of revenue for you. You might realize, I started selling this service, but most of my money is actually coming in because people want to hear me explain to them how they create that service, right? Or that product. And so you want to be aware of all these opportunities that exist. So when you look at the companies that we use on a regular basis, how do they make money? How does Google make money? Anybody? Advertising. And
hosting. They sell your data.
Yeah, Google's not a one-trick pony. There's hosting, they're selling your data, they're collaborating with other platforms. Think single sign-in. They're providing other services. Think G Suites for businesses, right? What are some other ways? So when you think YouTube, right? YouTube is Google or the Alphabet, ABC Alphabet company. They own YouTube. How do they make money off of there, right? All these streams of income that they have.
Their tools, they have the Google phone.
Yep. Yeah. So they have a lot of other tools. One of my favorite examples of companies and creative ways of making money is Dropbox. Do y'all use Dropbox for anything?
Yeah.
So Dropbox to me was the ultimate hustler. So I remember when I first started using Dropbox, it was their free account was, this is signing up with Dropbox before they started charging. It was like, sign up for Dropbox, you get 1 gig free. Cool. Well, I can store some stuff for a gig. But if you add Dropbox to another platform, you get 3 additional gigs free. Yeah, adding Dropbox to my phone right now. That's 4 gigs. Okay, if you do invite a friend, you get 5 more gigs free. Hey, I'm winning. So for about 2 to 3 years, I had about 10 gigs free with Dropbox or more. No, I'm sorry. I think I'd gotten up to like 50 gigs or something with all their little, freemium deals. And then at the end of the 3 years, it was like, hey, you at 49.9 gigs used. And we're going to start charging you, or you need to figure out somewhere else to put your stuff. Well, where am I going to go with 50 gigs of stuff? I can't just store that anywhere. Like, I'm stuck. So how much it's going to cost me? It was like, y'all straight pimp me. Appreciate that. Yeah, take my money. Like it was a plan, right, that worked for them, but they had the resources to be in that long game. And so they got me hooked to their service or their product. They got me, they have my data. They know at that time, it wasn't a lot of other places you could put 50 gigs or however many gigs of data I had anywhere else. So it's like, we got you right where we want you. By the way, here's your bill. You know what I mean? And so it was a very strategic approach of how to make money, right? But they had to have some serious investments to float them during that season. You guys remember Farmville? Anybody? Am I showing my age? Anybody remember
It
Farmville?
sounds like a game. What is it?
It was a game. Oh God.
Yeah.
I am showing my age. Please, somebody tell me, remember what Farmville was.
Isn't it a game on Facebook?
It was a game on Facebook. Oh, nobody knows. That's so sad. Yes, it was a game on Facebook. I honestly didn't play it, but I do know a lot of people that did, but I was fascinated with how they make money. because you had like literally a farm, right? A virtual farm and farm animals that you had to keep alive. So people kept adding money into, I got to feed my pigs and I got to feed this and I got to feed that. And so one, they sold advertisement, but then they kind of hooked you into the game of, well, I gotta have enough money to, to make sure that my cattle has what they need, right? And then like that was kind of like the competition of kind of running your farms, right? From my understanding of it. Right. But it kind of hooked you in gradually. And it just kind of had, and it was really like, and it wasn't a lot, right? It was a couple cents here or there, right? But it was enough where it got people hooked and continually engaged, right? So they built up that engagement, build up that following. And then it was like, well, if you really want to make progress, you just add it. And a lot of games take this approach, right? You can operate for free and you're barely thriving. But if you really want to be a competitor in this game, all you got to do is put in a couple dollars and then you can buy your way to the top, right? Mm-hmm. So that was a strategy for that game, right? How does Instagram make money? Yeah, no,
same as Google. I think through advertising, and I think.
Yeah, they also have a subscription plan. If I believe that's correct. They also have a subscription plan option for businesses. So it is advertising, but they also have alternative ways of also making money. So again, not
that's right.
Okay. Anybody else? What are some other entities you can think of that you use regularly, and how do they make money? I gotta update this one. Huh?
I think Facebook is the same way. Yeah.
Yeah,
Shonna
Facebook.
had a good one.
Say it again.
Shonna has a good one. Zoom.
Zoom. How does
40
Zoom
minutes.
Let me tell you, Zoom be like pimping people on a whole nother level. So how does Zoom make their money?
They're masterful.
They are. They're scary. And they were clutch during the pandemic. They just sat there and was like, suckers.
Yes. And I feel about Zoom the way who was that earlier that talked about Instacart?
Oh,
that was me.
I have a love-hate relationship with Zoom. They got some stuff right, but they got some stuff wrong, and it bothers me. But I'm still here. And I'm not going nowhere. I'm not going to Google Meet. You're not gonna pay me to go leave Zoom to go to Google Meet. I'll deal with what I don't like about Zoom.
Yeah. That was me with Skype back in the day, because before Zoom and those competitors came on, Skype was it. And I did a lot of work internationally, and Skype was all you had. You know what I'm saying? Like if you want to talk to people and you want to call back home and let them know you're alive, you better have that Skype. And I truly had a love-hate relationship with Skype. So yeah, I completely understand. All righty. So the big thing is when you pay attention to the different products and services that you use, you want to think about how they make money, right? And all the different revenue streams, because some of them are ad companies, or some of them sell a product or a service, but they're selling other things too, right? Because the longer you do business, the more things you acquire where you realize, hey, I can also make money off of this piece of my business as well, right? That domain of expertise that you're collecting, that you're gaining, that you're sharing, the data, the tools, the resources, the curriculums that you're putting together, the training materials that you're putting together, Elizabeth, all of that stuff, right? All of that stuff is marketable. All of those things are different streams of revenue that you can put together. Okay, wait, just what happened? Oh, darn. Okay. And this is just more on how it comes together. So when you think about, oh, sorry, Diana, you had your hand raised?
I don't know if I had my hand raised, but I was thinking to myself, like, so you mean to tell me the breakout rooms, we're paying for the breakout rooms on Zoom?
Not necessarily for the breakout rooms particularly. Okay. Zoom has this thing where you have your free Zoom, right? But then it's like, what happens when my meetings go more than 40 minutes and I get cut off? Let me just pay for Zoom. Okay, great. You pay for Zoom. Oh, wait, you want Zoom to store your recordings? Oh, that's going to cost you. Oh, you want Zoom to do, oh yeah, that's going to cost you too, right? And so like as you start to level up on the tools of Zoom, that's where they start to nickel and dime you.
Got it.
Yeah. Shonna, I know you've had some experiences with them.
Yeah, they got me with the storage.
Yeah, me too.
They all got us like that because they know we're all digital hoarders nowadays.
Yes.
I pay Google. I pay Google for storage space. I pay Zoom for storage space for my recordings. I pay Apple iCloud to store all my stuff. Everybody has their hand in my pocket for space.
Yeah.
It's a great way of making revenue as a tech.
Yeah. I mean, I use it, I compare it to like the streaming platforms, right? Like in order for you to like enjoy your streaming, it's like, oh, I really want to watch this. Oh, that's on this platform. Or I got to get that subscription. Oh, hold on now. Like I got rid of cable, but I done paid for 10 different platforms. Now it's worse than my cable. What is happening with my life, right? And so it's
Don't mention cable.
I definitely see some
Oh, you're
equivalence in that space on that one. So yeah, just showing some just and the revenue. Sorry, my screen is frozen and it's frozen in a very weird way. I feed for a second. Can you hear me now?
we hear you.
Yeah, we hear you fine.
All right, I'll bring something open on my computer and store my resources. So I am also that person who struggles with space issues. So I'm gonna do this. There we go. And that should manage it better. All right. Anyway, so this slide is really just kind of showing as we start to talk about the business model and how that connects to your revenue model. It is a piece of it. It is also a critical piece, right? Again, we can design the best of businesses, but if we're not figuring out how it makes money, then we won't get far. And like I said, this is some of the stuff, I'm presenting this to you guys now because when you get a chance to meet with Sean or some of the other people, I want you to already start thinking about what are the opportunities, right, that present themselves to you in terms of your business. And you bring those things up and he can help you flesh it out, right? But if you don't come prepared, and this is for all of our speakers, we're going to bring in a series of speakers and all of them have time set aside to work with you guys one-on-one. Peter McKay will come on and he will help you do some market research, but you need to understand the keywords in terms of the market that you're in so he can help you navigate that. And you can't really take advantage of that service if you don't actually know, you haven't actually, it's not no, you haven't had time to give thought to these nuances of your business. And this is another thing that I always tell people to think about in terms of your fixed costs and variable costs. I have a friend who he was supporting his mom. His mom started a business and I can't remember what she was selling, but he was helping his mom, with her business. And he'd been doing this for about 2 years. And then he went into town to visit his mom. And, he was curious, like, for the 2 years that he's been supporting his business, she's just not making money. He's like, she always has to borrow money from me to get more supplies, more resources, more products. So he was like, well, let me look at your books. Cause he asked her to keep meticulous books. And he looked at the business and realized he was essentially paying his mom's customers to do business with her. The business was costing more than she was making. And it was like, for 2 years, I've paid her to have customers. That's awesome. I mean, I paid the customers to do business with her. And this happens a lot if we don't really truly understand the cost of doing business, including the labor that we're putting into our businesses, right? Like your time is money. And if you cannot account for that time, when it comes time to growing your business and putting other people in space, you're going to feel like that cost is too high, right? And so you want to understand those fixed and variable costs to do your business. And you think about all the things that, all the time that you put in to the different nuances, the materials you have to abstract, the raw materials, the knowledge and that time that you put in, all of that factors in. That insurance that we talked about, all those things. Even if in your remote business, there are some fixed costs for a virtual business or a brick and mortar that are really important to you understanding. And it really makes a big difference in how you set your how you do your budget, right? You don't know the bare minimum you need to bring in, like what I call your life support budget, if you don't know how much it's costing you to run that business. And so these are all the things that, like I said, we're gonna do a dive into with Sean and some other people that comes on, that is really important for you guys to start to understand. And you know, I mentioned that fixed and variable costs, and so these are, and if you guys haven't been exposed to some of this, the fixed costs are things that don't change, right? So your utilities, if you're running that business at home, and some of these things are actually can be tax write-offs the more you know about them, right? But you're running that home business in your home office, or it's using up some of those resources. What does it cost? And the raw materials that you have to bring in, right? Labor costs, if you have to partner with anybody, what are those costs? I had an entrepreneur in one of my early cohorts, and she was doing a very unique line of greeting cards, and for a very specific audience. And it was really cool. But from the time that she dreamed up this idea, she was like, my greeting cards are going to be like $3. Like, that's going to be it, because I know my audience doesn't have a lot of resources. $3 greeting cards. And I'm like, well, where did you get this number from? She's like, that's just kind of what I visioned, $3 giving greeting cards. But when the art that went on her greeting cards, the cost of manufacturing, especially when she was starting out, because she didn't have the resources for massive manufacturing, all of that, $3, she would be out of business in 3 months, right? And so it was one of those things, like, I know that's what you want, but in understanding the cost of running your business, this doesn't make sense, right? Not till your business reaches a certain level where you can buy your raw materials at bulk and then afford to reduce that cost. But coming out, it just would not make sense for her business. And so these are just some of the things, and like we'll like I said, we'll do a deeper dive in. For the sake of time, I'll speed through this. Some of the resources that we have coming up, I just want to make sure I mention this. We are partnering with an organization in Orlando, in terms of, and this is for some of you guys that have a more established business, is if you are not, when we talked about revenue streams, oftentimes people focus on selling products and services, but there are other ways to make money with your business. And your business, doing business with the government is one of those ways. And the government buys everything, regardless of the kind of business you have. The government buys everything. I had an entrepreneur in one of my first cohort, and she made wigs. And she was like, yeah, nah. And I'm like, have you not heard of cancer research centers? They need wigs. They buy everything, right? And so if you are registered to do business with the government at the local level, the state level, the federal level, that is another source of revenue, regardless of the business that you are in. That is an opportunity to make money, right? And so if you really start to think about these streams of income, you realize there's so many ways you can position yourself. So we partnered with the Black Orlando Tech, to create this business certification program to help you get certified as a women, veteran, or minority-owned business. And the government has set aside to for small businesses that are has the designation of veteran, women, or minority-owned businesses, where certain contracts have to have women, veteran, or minority-owned businesses as part of that, as subcontractors or contractors. These are opportunities for you guys. And so with this program, our next cohort starts, is that 2 weeks, that you guys can partake in. I highly recommend it. And it's just kind of collaboratively, we just kind of walk you through those processes, and that you can kind of, get in the loop of how do you start to do business. And this certain business certification program is with the state, but the materials we help you get together in this program is very similar if you were getting materials together to do it at the federal level or the local level. A lot of your local municipalities, if you are registered at the state level, it's reciprocal. And so you still have to do the paperwork, but you just they'll grandfather you in if you have that certification at the state level. So FYI, if that is of interest to you guys, and I can drop the registration link in the chat. Another partnership we have is with the High Tech Corridor. And how many of you guys have heard of SBIRs, STTRs? No? Okay. More set asides. So our government has set asides for small businesses for you to conceptualize, and they have to have a tech component to it, but set aside for you to launch a new tech, to commercialize a tech product. And this is the phase one is, and there are 9 federal agencies that have SBIRs that you can apply for, from Department of Education, Department of Defense, etc. And they are, I believe, phase ones are normally up to $250K that you can use in 6 months, and get an extension if you need a little more time. But this is not money that they don't take a percentage of your company. You, other than apply for it, like, you don't lose equity. And this is literally just to test. Like, you can take this money, do some interviews, test stuff, all the stuff that we've been doing in the last 7 weeks. They give you $250K to do on that full scale level, right? And Florida is one of the worst states of taking advantage of this resource. My company was the only one in the last 2 years. Our company was the only one that was women owned, minority women, that it was women owned and had women technical leads that had SBIRs, right? And that's pretty sad, right? And so there's a lot of opportunity that people are not taking advantage of. And so we had the first session in terms of SBIR 101, but we have a continuation session, and we'll have cohorts starting in April to help you, to guide you through this process. So when I said at the beginning, taking advantage of the resources, these are just some of the resources that are out there that will help you launch, grow your businesses. And this is just like very, very short list. There's so many more programs, and getting looped into that is really some of the ways that we miss out on opportunity. By not being looped in is some of the ways that we miss out on these opportunities. Questions? I apologize. That was supposed to be an hour, and then we were going to have some breakout activities. I kind of talked for like almost 2 hours. So sorry, y'all. I promise it'll be better next week, but I really wanted to kind of set you up for this next phase. Anybody have questions on any of the stuff I just kind of threw at you? Yes, nay, yay. Okay. I'm putting the link in the chat to the business certification stuff that I mentioned. Sorry, disregard the SBIR part. There's also and I mentioned interns. There's a program at UF that does provide the interns that I mentioned, so I'll put that in the chat too. Their application link is on that page. And a couple of my entrepreneurs have used their interns and have rave reviews in terms of what they were able to do for them in growing their business. So I put that in the chat too. But those are my big things. Anybody have any other questions or concerns? Oh, go ahead, Elizabeth.
I was just gonna say back to the certification, and I took the class and it was really good. So if anybody here wants to do it, I definitely highly encourage that. But I did want to say that I enjoyed today's lesson, even though we had a lot of conversation. I think it's a lot of good conversation for somebody like me anyway, who already has my business started, but really seeing some of the pieces, being able to identify some of the pieces that I may have skipped over when starting the business, and how, being where I am now, reflecting back, I can see like, okay, that was definitely an issue. Like bookkeeping, that's one of like the hardest things I feel like to ever get together, for me at least. And I've had the ups and downs where the IRS was like, hey, too much. Hey, you owe us now, so I've had that. So, I know how important bookkeeping is, but I also find that it's one of those things that everybody's quick to say, oh, just use QuickBooks. And it's like, but that's not telling me what I need to really do for bookkeeping. Like, I can add numbers. Okay, great. But what am I looking for? What am I supposed to be doing with it? What information do I need to like have. If I'm doing something in my daily activity that I'm like, oh, you know, in my brain, I'm like, oh, I can use this for the business. Can I really? Like, you know, some of those are some of the conversations. So I know there are places out there that are there to help. And it's one of those, if you know that they're there, then great. But when you don't know that they're there and you get started, it's like, oh, I didn't do this right at all. So,
Yeah, no, that's
you
huge.
know, so I just, that was really great to see some of that stuff and be able for me to be able to identify some of the pitfalls that I've already had. And hopefully with this new breakout that I'm doing, or AKA launch, I guess, for this new portion of my business, be able to not have those same pitfalls with this.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a really good point. I think, like I said, entrepreneurship is something you learn by doing, and learn by doing piece of it sometimes revolt. Like some of the best lessons learned are the hard ones. I had a mishaps with the IRS on year one, and I'll never make that mistake again. So so yeah, you learned some valuable lessons along the way. So thank you for that, Elizabeth. I think that and like I said, I know you guys are at different stages. Some of you are launching, some of you have been in the game for a while. But again, even as someone who's run her business for a little bit, much like you, I was in a rush to get some certain pieces in place that I missed some other pieces when I started mine. So I had to kind of go back and really think through things. So that's a good point. We will have a bookkeeper on, and I got to look at the schedule of which day she will be on, but we will have a bookkeeper on as well to kind of think through some of those nuances. So some of the things in terms of our speakers will be helping you prepare for your pitch deck. And just because your pitch deck is one of the deliverables that we have, because that is your talking point as you present your business to the rest of the world. That is how kind of in this nice, neat package of kind of the nuances of your business. So we spend a lot of time on that. But some of our speakers that we'll be bringing on is really just kind of for your own personal development of, hey, make sure you have these things in place as you're, you know, launching or growing your business, just to make sure you have a solid foundation. So we do have some of those, or we try, like I said, we only have 3 weeks left, so we try to cram as much. And so some days we'll have 2 speakers. So I really admonish you guys, if you can, really try to be here on those days, because it's going to be jam-packed with information to kind of really get things moving. So if you have not done it already, please send in your paper prototype so we can review that and give you guys some feedback, do some testing on that. And we'll next week we'll go into getting you guys started on creating some of those wireframes. And then and some of the other development for your business. I apologize for talking so much, but it was really important that we get all this stuff out. So I hope y'all have a good rest of your evening, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right. Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night,
I needed
everybody.
that. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.